Hey everybody, ronarray here, and in 0.3 I tested a lot of different farms, starting with just breach plus quantity, following with ritual farming, and finishing up with an expedition. However, in today's video I want to showcase how good boss farming in 0.3 in general. I defeated 125 tier 4 king in the mist, and I'm going to showcase everything that I received together with calculating the profit that I got after. So you can look at it and decide if bossing and just precisely king in the mist farm worth it for you. Let's go forward and I will be able to explain how much time I spent, how much I paid for entrances, and what mean my final profit too. Feel free to click on the timestamps if you're interested in particular topics, and let's go. So let's start with talking about the boss first. To reach highest level of King in the Mist, which is an old tier 4 and the current difficulty 3, area level 82, you will need 150 petition splinters. So every run usually takes about 1 minute approximately based on how fast you can complete just the maze in the second stage of the King of the Mist. Generally, maze could be a little random right now, and you can't use logging out anymore to skip the maze stage, unfortunately. However, there's a cool trick. You can pretty much just go out of the game twice, so just logging out and coming back, if you are failing the maze, and you will not receive damage from the darkness. So use it if you can't complete the maze at the moment, because it's going to help you against like dying, and you will be able to complete the maze even if you're already in the darkness. So you can see right now on the screen me running in the darkness without receiving any kind of damage. So with such timer, I would say 125 runs should take approximately about 3 hours, because you will also need a little additional time for sorting, buying splinters, and just re-entering. You could definitely do it faster, but I will calculate it as approximately 3 hours farming. So identifying Ingenuity currently costs only 5-6 exalteds per each, and since I got like 28 of them, I think I can finish up with about 140 exalteds if I will just sell them, so it's not a big chunk of the profit. There's also a pretty interesting idea to just identify all of them and corrupt them later on, so it could be an option too, but I'm going to calculate them in the identified version, because that way it will be much more stable and less of a gamble. So now the next step is from nothing diamonds. Those could be very random, especially if you are going to identify them. However, unidentified versions currently cost about 190 exalteds per each. I dropped 12 of them, so the chance is approximately 10-11% based on my experience. And if I will sell all of them just in identified version for people who's going to gamble them, I will receive 2,280 exalteds, which is a pretty decent amount in the current economy, and I think it's going to help me significantly to get my currency back that I spent just running the boss himself. So now let's talk about basic currency drops. While farming 125 bosses, I received 5 raw divine drops, which is pretty nice. On top of it, I also received pretty decent amount of chaoses, so like 18 chaoses and 1 greater chaos orb, and about 68 exalted orbs. And I also received 6 orb of chances, and I disenchanted all basic unique items that dropped except like belts and jewels. So in the end, 6 orb of chances what I ended up with. There are also some alchemy at the moment which cost not a lot. So in the end, all of that together will be literally the same as 298 exalteds and 5 divines on top. So that's what I ended up with for the currency. So now let's talk about the main profit maker or the whole strategy. That's pretty much a set of omens that we dropped after 125 King in the Mist bosses. So main omens here is Omen of Witlings. I dropped 4 of them, so it's about 1,300 exalteds approximately. Double Omen of Sinistral Erasure, which is 1,100 exalteds. and which is pretty good too, and Omen of Dexterous Rager, which is pretty expensive at the moment as well. There's also 6 Omen of Homogenizing Exaltation, ending up with 600 exalted just for those. And 13 Omen of Chaotic Rarity, used pretty often right now to boost maps, so it's 280 approximate exalted for just those as well. There's also 15 Omens of Amelioration, which is 150 exalted too, and a lot of basic omens such as like Omen of the Ancients, which is like 60 exalted for each at the moment, and a lot of basic omens such as Bartering, Greater Exaltation or Refreshment. Together with Omen of Corruptions, we want like 26 of them, and they cost 8 for each. So in the end, if I will sell all the Omens that you can see on the screen, which I dropped, I will receive about 4,400 exalts, which is a very good result based on just Omens. If I would be a little more lucky with like Sinister Rager, for example, or would drop more Weaklings, I would definitely generate even more currency. But even like that, 4,400 exalted just from the Omens is a very decent number. So after selling all the items, I received about 2,200 exalted from the jewels, 300 exalted plus 5 divines from the currency, and 4,400 exalted from just Omens, ending up with 7,128 exalted. So with the current divine price, which is approximately like 1 divine to 205, 207 exalted, and adding 5 divines that I just rolly dropped from the boss, I think I made 39.5 divines after 3 hours of farming. However, I still paid about 18 divines for entrances. If you're going to just exclude those 18 divines, my profit would be 21.5 divine after 3 hours of farming, which is going to give us about 7 divines each hour from just farming the boss, and all of that with very stable chances, so without selling anything big and without even identifying the jewels, which would be a pretty big gamble. Right now you can still make about 7 divines just running the boss. Prices are also pretty volatile both for Omens and for boss himself. So I believe that at some point it could be a little more profitable, like jumping up to maybe 8 divines per hour, or it can also fall down up to like 5 divines per hour. But it's still a pretty decent amount of currency if you're just going to focus on farming boss and saving all Omens and selling them later on to make a profit. Most of the time, and biggest part of the profit is always just going to come from big Omens, because they're going to both pay for the entrances and help you out in the long distance to make a decent amount of profit. I also think that if you will identify jewels, there could be a pretty big wins and a pretty big losses, since I calculated jewels by practically reaching about just 12 divines, so almost 1 divine per jewel, since I calculated selling them unidentified. I think if instead I would identify the jewels, there is a big chance that I would make more currency, because there is a pretty nice chances to reach jewels which are more popular and should have a better cost too. It would be a gamble, but I think it can make just running that boss strategy much more profitable, especially in the long run, even if it's going to be risky if you're not farming enough bosses. I'm probably going to identify those jewels a little later to see if I would make more currency with identifying or not. However, if you just want a stable profit at the moment, I still recommend to sell most of your stuff unidentified, because that way you will have the guaranteed currency and will not risk it at all. So that's been my farming test for 125 tier 4 King in the Mists, and I think in the end the profit been pretty great. Staying between 5 and 7 divines per hour, I think it's a very decent option, especially if your build showcasing better bossing results against mapping results. You can definitely make the same amount in maps, and maybe you can make even more if you're just going to run rituals or dedicated expedition or just high quantity breach. However, I'm pretty impressed that you can still make currency with just bossing at King of the Mist even if it's locked together with Omen drops, which could be kinda random and could differ depending on the situation. However, I still think that you're always going to make profit just running the boss and can definitely recommend it to you if you enjoy bossing overall. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time. ronarray out.